I would like to say some things about the Elder Porphyrios. Was the elder of the love, the elder of aesthetics, and
We can't hear you.
oh, is it okay now?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's open.
I think there is.
It's okay? Ah, that's good. I have to do that. I'm not singer. And I think that is a new paradigm in our ascetic life and in our ascetic world, actually, Orthodox world. I have some comments only in his writings, and I would like to discuss after that the comments to Elder Porphyrios. It is important in this instance to emphasize that the elder does not refer to an elimination of the senses, but to the purification of the senses, that is, to their captivity by that which is beautiful. Thus, through such an interpretation, one understands naivety of the view that is often presented with authority and certainty, which uncritically identifies the cessation of the senses with the nihilism. One understands the accurateness of the late Father Justin Popovich, the patriarch of Serbian Orthodox theology, when in his classic work Man and God-Man, he made these following insights, revelatory and prophetic for our topic, sensation or feeling. Who can explain to me this mystery that is within me? Sensation. Within that which we call sensation, who knows what renaries and mysteries God has united and melded? Sensation. A wondrous and terrible gift. By this gift, paradise proves itself to be paradise, and hell proves itself to be hell. By this, pain manifests itself as pain, and blessedness as blessedness. Sadness is experienced as sadness, and joy as joy. Despair is experienced as despair, and elation is experienced as elation. Because what is hell? It is sensation without the word of God, a feeling out of which God was expelled. And what is paradise? A sensation of God, feeling in communion with God and fulfilled by word of God. Indeed, hell is godless, poor feeling, while paradise is the word wordified, Christified, and theanthropic. That means God-man-ified, God-manified sensation. Where there is sensitivity, there the signs of holiness begin to appear, or in other words, holy sensitivity is a precondition for holiness. Therefore, sensitivity is, simultaneously, the prerequisite and manifestation result of holiness. Sensitivity makes St. Porphyrios of Kafsokalivia note with great courage that to become a Christian, one must have a poetic soul. She must be a poet. This is because Christ does not want coarse souls near him. This dynamic and provocative proposal of the elder most certainly upsets the certainty of a prosaic existence, closed off in external observation and cheap commentary of reality. Conversely, the perspective that the vision of the authentic representative of the Orthodox philocalic aesthetics opens shows the other path, surely not an easy one, opened with the fusion of sensitivity, revelation, and pain. Holy sensitivity is directly and factually related to pain, and therefore with the revelation of things, because only he or she who suffers pain. On such a path, love is placed at the summit and is protected while being distributed. As the crown jewel, the soul of the Christian, says the elder, should be delicate, sensitive, full of emotion, soaring, living amidst dreams, flying amidst the infinite, amidst the stars, amidst the grandeur of God, amidst silence. And again, whoever wants to become a Christian must first become a poet. This is it. You must suffer pain. You must love and suffer pain. Here, of course, I have the temptation to make a parenthesis. I think it necessary to illustrate the elders' encounter with our folk popular tradition of Greece, our popular culture and humanity, that he, as the leading expression of creativity, bears. In a very nice book entitled Everything is a Lie, dedicated to the old lady of the Greek song, as they characteristically called our great popular lyricist Ευτυχία Papagiannopoulou, the famous Lefteris Papadopoulos writes the following. Thusly setting the tone, our race is not scared of storms, it is proud of them. And he means Ευτυχία Papagiannopoulou. She daydreams, becomes disappointed, and rejoices in the artistic quality of a folk muse. And her words become true, finding their target in the heart of the common man. They represent his genuine voice. If pain were a man, we could fight. But now pain has found my heart and strikes it without warning, with a two-edged sword. If you do not suffer pain, you do not write. It assures me. It is pain and sensitivity that creates the poet. Not that I am a poet, I merely write songs. And this may be the key to a true understanding of love, which, according to Elder Porphyrios, accompanies pain and poetry. It is a love that is not associated with any moralism or legalism. Love for the elder is not the acquisition of virtues, but surely the manifestation of a loving heart, a poetic heart. That is a heart that furiously loves Christ, people and creation. The Christian, he notes, is a poet even when he simply loves. He is in the midst of poetry. The expression of love on the part of the creature truly shows its response to the revealed love, to Christ himself. Love for the world around us leads to the feeling of joy for the existence of this world. This world, if it is read correctly, teaches us about God and leads to God. All the things around us, the elder observes, are drops of God's love. Animate and inanimate nature, the plants and the animals, the birds, the mountains and the sea, the sunset and the starry sky. They are small loves through which we arrive at the great love who is Christ. Flowers, for example, have their own grace. They teach us by their aroma about their greatness. They speak to us about the love of God. They scatter their fragrance, their beauty to both sinners and righteous. Without any hesitation, if we can apply adjectives to aesthetics, such as philocalic, prophetic, eschatological, then the aesthetics of Elder Porphyrios can add to all of this universality. It is a fundamentally and ecumenical aesthetics, since it is revealed as the results of God's universal energy, which has room for everything. As God does not reveal himself only to the righteous, and let us remember here the descent of Christ on Hades, so the creation as God's creation spreads its beauty to the whole world. The universality of God is revealed through the universality of creation and the universality of man. The universal God, the universal man, the universal creation reveal the universality of Christ's church. Within such a universality, the universal man of Orthodox experiences these beautiful moments with zest, affirms the purposefulness of creation that shows the providence and glory of God. She feels unity with God and creation and experiences her inability to live beyond and outside of this unity. He lives together with all. He lives or she lives in all. Nature is the mystical gospel, leading a person to the sense of God and revealing, feeling, and even praying with a person to the person of revelation, that is, to Christ. By observing the life of the elder, as it is manifested by his writings, one recognizes a man who longs for life. And this, firstly, comes as a surprise because the picture that sometimes comes to mind is the image of an ever-increasing misery, of resignation from life, based on an idealistic belief in the afterlife. St. Porphyrios of Kassokalivia comes, in his own way, to spoil such attitudes, and behind all these things, one searches for his points of departure. He himself many times refers to this, mainly to his Athonite beginnings, which also constituted his ending. I think we already have seen, from what I have noted, that the sensitivity of the elder allows for another feeling and encounter with things. It is an extremely existential reality, a reality that transforms the innervation and seclusion of a prosaic life into a poetic and highly artistic oblation, where the encountered is not actualized with psychological truths and certainties, but with a person, only with psychological truths. This is the person of the incarnate Word, the person of crucified Teros, the person of Christ. Otherwise, if sensitivity as God's gift is not transformed, not proceeded, not converted, not transfigured, not translated into love, joy, divine worship, if it is left, that is uncorrected, it can lead a person to grief and despair. And there are not a few of those cases of sensitivity people, but without the aforementioned transformative offering in their lives, who were driven to self-destruction and nihilism. Instead, the transformed sensitivity, the holy sensitivity, as the holy things of the holy ones, in other words, of God's friends, and here I am borrowing the ecclesiastical schema where St. Christopher is the patron saint of drivers, St. Stylianos, the patron saint of small children, etc., is not just the means for one to reach Christ, but is Christ himself. Of course, one can bring before one's eyes, even before Christ, as the most beautiful expression of holy sensitivity, the Theotokos, the mother of the incarnate Word. Besides, as the elder says, sensitivity is found more frequently in women. However, it should be emphatically stressed that sensitivity of the Virgin Mary and of any human being would have no meaning beyond and outside of its ecclesial transformation in the person of Christ. This same Christ who is love and life and light and joy. This is the Synaxarion, the book of the lives of the saints, then that St. Porphyrios writes with the pen of his life, the Synaxarion of Christ, who lives with him, and he passionately exclaims, as another Paul, "It is not I who live, but Christ who lives in me." Besides, as he says with great humility, the whole secret in his love being in love with Christ. Some, of course, believe that this day is non-existent. Among the first and best, the atheists and all who have been frustrated by the works of religious people. People who made the here and now the only reality of a life with cosmic boundaries. People whose perceptions and attitudes reveal the face of a tragic anti-humanism, following the emergence of various fanatic systems of our socio-political times. The result of which is ultimately a boundless and therefore terrifying hedonism, worse and more cruel than the atrocities of Hitler and other tyrants of Western and Eastern history. A hedonism beyond pleasure and desire, which, as Onfray, I don't know if you know Michel Onfray is a new French philosopher, the most significant representative of modern atheism, were the paradigmatic employment of the anthropological core of his teaching, for now at least makes unnecessary any other reference to the ontology of atheism. He has suggested here and now the denial of the sick, the mutilated, the tortured and degraded body, of martyrdom or of asceticism or of any other reality that can show the limits of creededness and consequently the necessity for their extension. A reality which receives flesh through the creativity of Eros and the transcendence of an antisocial individualism. The transcendence, in other words, of the sterile dialectic of that tragic either-or which celebrates an incomplete man and a man without pain, suffering, and loss its surly and incomplete man, and unable therefore to understand how the fullness of things is found in the forgiveness of the pain we receive and in love. In the union of sacrifice and the resurrection, in the mystery of the cross, which is the only condition for the victory over death and for the true emergence of the body. Of course, the cross, as Manos Hatzidakis notes again, this big musician of Greece, who nevertheless did not want them to place a cross on his grave, unbearably hurts only him who is crucified on it, even though those who are around him are despair due to him being lost. The crucified one only knows the sum total, the result of thousands of mathematical calculations of an entire life, which he will accept with him into heaven to put it mystically and carefully to the top of a mountain of brilliant constellation, adding to infinity forever one more mystery. It seems that Onfray did not suspect this truth, and this is why, full of himself, he notes, really, how is it possible for someone to create a vision of the world based on the worship of a crucified, mutilated, wounded, and humiliated corpse? A dead man who has turned into a motto for life. This is a metaphysical paradox that managed, however, beyond all logic, to create a vision of the world which has since spread across almost the whole planet. We live in the shadow of the accursed cross, and our body still exudes the deathly smell of the corpse of a legend, if not the myth of a corpse. And further along, he notes that Christianity denied the bodies. It glorified the sick, mutilated, tortured, humiliated body. It has released martyrdom. It has invented a dark erotic love, in the darkness of which our bodies continue to lie as in a shroud without perfumes. And the philosopher's conclusion, absolutely certain for the beginning, gives birth to a new proposal and reveals the culmination of a strict monophysitism, unique in the history of civilization, perhaps even for the history of atheism. I sense that Nietzsche, Camus, and Sartre will be speechless before such a statement, according to which the solar sex-based impulse of life would celebrate the energy of living beings, preferring the worship of the phallus over the worship of the cross, which loves the partner as an opportunity to find joy, deserves out attention, either in theory, as with this book, or in practice, such as urging the reader of the above textbook, like Kama Sutra and others. Summarizing all the above, we can conclude that if the great failure of Christianity, according to Onfray, was that it strangled life, this is a truth which we have already pointed out in the aforementioned pages. The tragedy of his solar eroticism is without doubt the denial of affirmation in many cases and the shameless persecution of pain and weakness. A fact which led the philosopher to replace the antibody of theology with the antibody of atheism. In the first case, the present is absent, and in the other instance, the eschaton. In both cases, the loser is the person of creation, who is not a univocal reality, but the hero of ambiguity. an ambiguity which is saved in the Church by the mystery of the Incarnation, the reality falsely accused by Onfray of Christ. The mystery of the affirmation of the uncreated one in the total body of creation, here and now, that as a historical fact, beyond and outside of every ideal desire, constitutes the only possibility to save humans' expectation. This existential composition, which does not simply prepare the way for the future, creating in this way beings dressed in the clothes of existential escape, but gives meaning to that which exists, constituting the loom which waves truth, as a surely historical, but simultaneously denying every historical compromise dynamic presence. And perhaps for this reason, the gospel ultimately constitutes the only true theology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Stamoulis, for that very interesting presentation. We have time for questions.
Thank you very much for your edifying presentation. And I would like to ask a little bit more about Father Porphyrios and his views on this subject that you touched upon. Thank you.
I'm just going to be translating quickly here so the professor can speak very spontaneously.
Θα ήθελα να πω ότι το παράδειγμα του γέροντος Πορφυρίου είναι εξαιρετικό στη νεότερη ασκητική γραμματεία μας.
He says that his example is unique in modern literature.
Κατά την προσωπική μου άποψη, είναι ένα από τα καλύτερα βιβλία, το βιβλίο του Βίος και έργα, που διάβασα τα τελευταία 15 χρόνια.
His book Vios και έργα, Life and Works, according to Professor Stamoulis, is one of the best books in modern spirituality.
Διότι φέρνει στην ασκητική μας παράδοση μια νέα πραγματικότητα με τέτοια ένταση και τέτοια δυναμική.
Because it brings with us a new ascetic reality with great dynamism.
Και αυτό είναι μια θεολογία της χαράς.
And this is the theology of joy.
Μπαίνει στο περιθώριο της πνευματικής ζωής ένας μονοφυσιτικός πεσημισμός.
So a sort of Monophysite pessimism goes to the side. It's not central anymore.
Αν προσέξατε, είπα στο κείμενό μου ότι υπάρχουν δύο μορφές πεσημισμού. Η μία είναι η χριστιανική και η άλλη η αθεϊστική.
In Professor's paper, he said there are two kinds of pessimism, and the one was
η χριστιανική,
the Christian pessimism,
και η άλλη είναι η αθεϊστική, της αθείας.
And atheistic pessimism.
Στα αλήθεια είναι ο ίδιος πεσημισμός,
But it's the same pessimism, actually,
που έρχεται από διαφορετικές κατευθύνσεις.
coming from two different directions.
Το έλεγα και προχθές σε μια συνάντηση που είχαμε, θα το πω και σήμερα, γιατί μου αρέσει πολύ το παράδειγμα. Οι φοιτητές μας στη Θεσσαλονίκη, φαντάζομαι και αλλού, γράφουν το σύνθημα «Υπάρχει ζωή πριν το θάνατο».
Students in Thessaloniki, his students have a slogan, "Is there life before death?"
Και νομίζω ότι ο γέροντας Πορφύριος σε αυτήν την ερώτηση απαντάει.
And Geron Porphyrios is actually answering this question.
Αυτή όμως η θεολογία της χαράς δεν είναι άδεια από πόνο και πάθος.
But this theology of joy is not devoid of pain and
Πάθος.
And passion,
suffering. Θα έλεγα ότι η πραγματική θεολογία της χαράς στηρίζεται στο σταυρό που μας χαρίζει ο πόνος και το πάθος.
The true theology of joy actually is based on the cross and the passion.
Εκείνοι που συνειδητοποιούν το μέγεθος της κτιστότητας και της φθοράς του ανθρώπου,
only those people who actually realize the grandeur of their creativeness, the fact that they're created beings,
συνειδητοποιούν την ωραιότητα της ζωής.
They're the only ones that can really realize the beauty of life.
Είναι αυτό που ο Εκκλησιαστής στο βιβλίο της Παλαιάς Διαθήκης μας λέγει,
that which you see in Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament,
ότι θα πρέπει να χαιρόμαστε όλες τις στιγμές της ζωής ζώντας εν Θεό.
That we need to rejoice in all moments of life.
Ζώντας εν Θεό.
Oh, living in God.
Και το λέγω αυτό διότι και στην Ορθόδοξη παράδοση σήμερα επικρατούν δύο τάσεις.
Because in contemporary Orthodoxy, two tendencies are observed.
Η μία αυτή που λέγει ότι τι καλά πονάμε και τι καλά πεθαίνουμε. Τι ωραία.
The one says, how great is it that we are in pain.
Είναι πάρα πολύ όμορφο να πονάμε και να πεθαίνουμε. Είμαστε θανατόφιλοι και πονόφιλοι.
Yeah, as if we enjoy pain and dying.
Και οι άλλοι ότι...
The one tendency.
Και οι άλλοι ότι δεν πρέπει να βλέπουμε τίποτα το αρνητικό, μάλλον τίποτα το θετικό στη διαδικασία του θανάτου και του πόνου. Η άλλη πλευρά. Ο πόνος και ο θάνατος στην Ορθόδοξη παράδοση εμπεριέχουν μια τραγικότητα και δραματικότητα.
But pain and death in the Orthodox tradition have a tragic
και δραματικότητα.
A dramatic aspect and also a tragic aspect.
Δεν είναι ευχάριστα πράγματα.
They're not positive things.
Και δεν είναι εύκολα.
And they're not easy.
Αλλά ακριβώς από αυτήν την δυσκολία τη σταυρική,
but within this crucified difficulty,
ξεκινάει η μεταμόρφωση της ζωής στον χώρο του χριστιανισμού.
That's where the transformation comes.
Από την πλήρη κατανόηση αυτής της δραματικότητας.
From the full realization of that dramatic process.
Ο άνθρωπος που γνωρίζει τα όρια του,
a person who knows his own limits,
τα όρια της κτιστότητας,
that is to say, the fact that he's a created being and those limits,
είναι ο άνθρωπος ο οποίος διψά για ζωή.
Is a person who actually is thirsty for true life.
Αυτή είναι η ισορροπία που μας προσφέρει ο Γέροντας Πορφύριος μέσα από αυτό το τραγούδι της χαράς.
And this is the balance that Geron Porphyrios gives us.
Γι' αυτό και λέγει ότι ο χριστιανός, για να είναι πραγματικός χριστιανός, πρέπει να είναι ποιητής.
And that's why he says, in order for a Christian to be a true Christian, he has to be a poet.
Τι σημαίνει ποιητής?
What does a poet mean, though?
Ένας άνθρωπος ο οποίος ζει πονώντας και αγαπώντας ή αγαπώντας και πονώντας.
A person who lives hurting and loving or
ή αγαπώντας και πονώντας.
Loving and hurting.
Δεν ξέρω, κύριε καθηγητά μου, αν it's okay, is it okay?
I just to mention that
we have to say many things for
Professor
the Porphyrios, but
is a poet and he has published poetry and also he's a musician. So he's talking from experience, and I think true theology is indeed this kind of creativity. You have to engage the culture, and he actually does this in his lectures, but also in his. He gave me he's done 5 CDs, and I'm actually listening to them in my car. They're fantastic.
That means that I'm a theologian with many problems.
I'm wondering if you can talk about poetry and what that is and what that would mean in this context with suffering.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ για την ερώτηση. Ήδη έχω πει κάποια πράγματα.
Ήδη έχω already said some things in my paper regarding this.
Ο ποιητής, όπως και ο Άγιος,
the poet, as in the case of the saint,
και αυτή είναι μια συσχέτιση, μια σύνδεση που συναντούμε πάρα πολύ συχνά, όχι μόνο στην εκκλησιαστική γραμματεία, αλλά και στην θύραθεν λογοτεχνία.
And there's a connection we see not only in church literature, but also in secular literature.
Ενώ της αγιότητος με την προφητεία και την ποιητικότητα.
That is to say, sanctity and a way of being prophetic and poetic. Συγκροτεί μια πραγματικότητα η οποία δηλώνει ότι η αγιότητα και η ποιητικότητα δεν μπορούν παρά να αποκαλύπτονται μέσα από την ευαισθησία, μέσα από τον δρόμο της ευαισθησίας, της αγίας ευαισθησίας. Sensitivity. Ναι.
Δεν μπορούν παρά να αποκαλύπτονται μέσα από τον δρόμο της ευαισθησίας.
Yeah, these things cannot be revealed except through the road of sensitivity. In other words, the connection between sanctity and poetry.
Και ο ποιητής και ο Άγιος είναι άνθρωποι οι οποίοι έχουν ασκημένα, γεγυμνασμένα αισθητήρια.
Both the poet and the saint are people who have well-exercised sensitivities.
Αυτός που έχει ασκημένα και γεγυμνασμένα αισθητήρια, δηλαδή αυτήν την ευαισθησία, την αγία ευαισθησία,
these people who have this kind of sensitivity,
είναι πιο ευάλωτος απέναντι στις αλλαγές της ζωής.
more sensitive and vulnerable to the changes in life.
Είναι αυτός ο οποίος μπορεί και προσλαμβάνει δυναμικά στο σώμα του τις αλλαγές της ζωής.
They are people that are able to assimilate these changes in their life.
Και έχω την αίσθηση ότι η σημαντικότερη στιγμή του ανθρώπου είναι η συνάντησή του με τον πόνο και το θάνατο.
And the most important times in a person's life is when the person meets pain and death.
Το πρόβλημα του σύγχρονου πολιτισμού απέναντι στον πόνο και στο πάθος είναι η αδυναμία του να τον κατανοήσει, άρα και να τον υποδεχθεί.
The problem with contemporary society regarding pain and death is the fact that society does not understand it.
Μου άρεσε πάρα πολύ που εδώ στην Αμερική βλέπω τα κημητήρια να είναι στο κέντρο των πόλεων ή κοντά στις πόλεις ή μέσα στις πόλεις.
The professor says he likes the fact that here in America you see graveyards oftentimes in the middle of a city or in a central location.
Αυτή ήταν και η παράδοση της αρχαίας Ελλάδος.
This is also the situation in ancient Greece.
Ο νεότερος πολιτισμός σιγά σιγά βγάζει από το κέντρο της πόλεως τα κημητήρια, άρα και τους κεκοιμημένους.
Modern society gradually expelled, you might say, the graveyards from the cities and the whole issue of death.
Για λόγους υγιεινής βέβαια.
Supposedly for hygiene reasons.
Αλλά αυτό δείχνει την αδυναμία του ανθρώπου να διαλεχθεί και να υποδεχθεί τον πόνο, το πάθος και τον θάνατο.
It shows the inability of modern man to actually have a dialogue with death and pain.
Και επειδή ο πόνος και ο θάνατος δεν είναι απρόσωπες πραγματικότητες, αλλά έχουν πρόσωπο.
And because pain and death are not impersonal realities, but have a face.
Δείχνουμε την αδυναμία μας να υποδεχθούμε τον άρρωστο άνθρωπο που βαδίζει στα τελικά βήματα της ζωής του.
This also shows our inability to deal with sick people and people who are in pain.
Ένας πολύ σπουδαίος λογοτέχνης της πόλης της Θεσσαλονίκης, ο Νίκος Γαβρίλ Πεντζίκης, λέει κάτι το οποίο είναι εκπληκτικό.
A very important modern literary figure, Nicholas Penzikis, says something that's very significant.
Ότι ο ασθενής άνθρωπος είναι μνημείον απεριορίστου κάλους.
He says that the sick person is a memory of unlimited beauty.
Όταν ο πολιτισμός μας θα κατανοήσει αυτήν την μνημειακή προοπτική της ασθένειας και του ασθενή, τότε θα ομιλούμε για έναν καινούριο και δημιουργικό πολιτισμό.
When our society can realize this again, that's when we can talk about civilization really going forward.
Γι' αυτό και είπα ότι ο Μισελ Onfray, ο οποίος είναι η σημαία του νεότερου γαλλικού αθεϊσμού, όταν είπα ότι λέγει αυτά που λέγει και ήμουν σκληρός απέναντί του, το είπα διότι εδώ έχουμε τα σημάδια στην φιλοσοφία του ενός άγριου αντιανθρωπισμού, χειρότερο και από τον ναζισμό.
And that's why the philosopher mentioned in the paper, who is this leader of atheism, has this extremely
χειρότερο και από τον ναζισμό.
Oh, something he's even a very how can you say?
Άγριο αντιανθρωπισμού, χειρότερο και από τον ναζισμό.
Very
dangerous anti-anthropism. Anti-humanism.
Even worse than Nazism. Even worse than Nazism.
Ο Onfray έχει στο μυαλό του έναν πολιτισμό των υγιών.
Onfray has this notion of a society of healthy people.
Αυτό είχε και ο Χίτλερ.
But that's the exact same thing as Nazism, as Hitler.
Το πρόβλημα μου δεν είναι η αθεία. Σέβομαι απίστευτα τους ανθρώπους αθείας.
So the first problem, he has no problem with atheism. He has a class on atheism actually at the university.
Μου αρέσει ο Νίτσε, ο Σάρτρ, αλλά αυτοί ήταν πραγματικοί άθεοι.
He respects Sartre and Nietzsche and so on and so forth. He respects anyone's views, but this is a very violent atheism.
It's okay. Thank you.
Professor, I just want to thank you so much for the gift of this connection that you speak about from Elder Porphyrios, which you live now, this connection between sensitivity, revelation, pain, and love. I got excited and happy just reading the title of your lecture because
Thank you very much.
we live in a world where these connections aren't made. This is a very, in a sense, anti-poetic world that we live in. So
Okay.
I want to thank you for these connections. They're a gift.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed, because it is very difficult. Someone who writes a text and tries to put his finger in the problem, to find a good way to explain his thoughts, but together the thought with, for example, Father Porphyrios, Elder Porphyrios, on the other writers who I used in my text. Νομίζω ότι ο Άγιος και ο ποιητής... Κοιτάξτε, έχει διαβάσει κανείς την μικρή μας πόλη του Thornton Wilder?
The book, My Small... Has anyone read the book, My Small City?
The Little Town.
The Little Town.
Of Thornton Wilder. Do you like it? Να θυμηθούμε στην τρίτη πράξη, αν δεν κάνω λάθος,
Remember in the third chapter or act,
τι συμβαίνει με τη μικρή πρωταγωνίστρια.
what happened with the main character?
Στη γέννα του πρώτου της παιδιού,
When her first child was born,
η Έμιλη φεύγει από τη ζωή, στα 16 της πεθαίνει.
at 16 years old, she died.
Και πηγαίνει στον χώρο των κεκοιμημένων όπου την υποδέχονται οι παππούδες, οι γονείς κτλ. Είναι πολύ συνηθισμένο το φαινόμενο του διαλόγου των κημητηρίων στη λογοτεχνική μας παράδοση. Και ο Ντοστογεύσκι και άλλοι το έχουν κάνει.
And she went to the land of the dead, so on and so forth.
Και της λένε ότι έχει το δικαίωμα μιας τελευταίας επιθυμίας, η οποία θα πραγματοποιηθεί.
And they tell her that she has the right for one last wish.
Αυτή λέει ότι θα ήθελε να δει μια ημέρα της ζωής της, μια κανονική ημέρα. Και όλοι προσπαθούν να της πούν ότι δεν πρέπει να γίνει.
And she said that what she wants to see is one normal day of her life.
Γιατί θα είναι δραματικό και θα πονέσει.
Because that would be, and they try to dissuade her not to do this because that would be tragic and painful.
Και εκείνη επιμένει και τελικά της δίνουν μια ημέρα των γενεθλίων της στα 13 της, δεν
But she
θυμάμαι.
insists, and they finally let her see a day of her birthday when she was 13 years old.
Και βλέπει λοιπόν το σπίτι του,
And she
στους
sees her
γονείς,
house, her
η
parents,
μητέρα να ετοιμάζει το
her
φαγητό, ο
mother's
πατέρας να φέρνει το
preparing the
δώρο,
food, her father's bringing the gift,
τα παιδιά να παίζουν,
the kids are playing,
το σκουπιδιάρικο να περνάει μαζί και ο
the
γαλατάς,
garbage truck is passing by,
τα λουλούδια να
milkman,
ανθίζουν
the flowers,
στα παράθυρα
blooming,
κτλ, τα αρώματα,
the smells.
και ρωτάει τον υπεύθυνο σκηνής.
And she asks the man who's responsible there,
Όλα αυτά συμβαίνουν, είναι αληθινά?
do all these things really happen? Are they true?
Και της λέει εκείνος, βεβαίως.
Of course they are.
Και εκείνη ξαναρωτάει,
And then she asks again,
εμείς οι άνθρωποι τα βλέπουμε?
do we people see these things?
Και απαντάει ο υπεύθυνος, όχι.
No.
Υπάρχουν κάποιοι που τα βλέπουν, ξαναρωτάει.
Are there some people who see them? She asks again,
Και απαντάει,
and he answers,
the saints and the poets, maybe.
that's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much for the talk. There was a New York Times bestseller written by a local Boston doctor who works in public health policy, Atul Gawande, Being Mortal, Medicine and What Matters, in which he looks at the way in which American society in particular treats infirmity from aging, chronic illness, terminal illness, and finally death. And what he says is that we're completely ill-equipped to handle this new reality in which death, for the most part, has been put at bay and is no longer a common experience. And he advocates for creating a modern ars morienda, an art of dying. And, you know, this is very common from medieval practices and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So who is writing an orthodox ars morienda?
Orthodox?
An orthodox art of dying.
Ποιος θα γράψει αυτή την τέχνη του θανάτου, η Ορθόδοξη?
Νομίζω ότι η τέχνη του θανάτου, η Ορθόδοξη, είναι γραμμένη εδώ και πολλά χρόνια.
I think that it's already been written.
Νομίζω γράφτηκε από τον ίδιο τον Χριστό.
Well, and that's the story of Christ, first of all.
Αλλά οι χριστιανοί δεν το ξέρουν.
But Christians don't know it.
Αν δούμε, πολλές φορές με ρωτάνε τι πρέπει να κάνουμε εμείς χριστιανοί. Μα ό,τι έκανε ο Χριστός.
Many Christians ask, what are we supposed to do as Christians? And Professor just answers, whatever Christ did.
Αυτό το βιβλίο της τέχνης του θανάτου είναι ακριβώς η διαδικασία ζωής και θανάτου του Χριστού. Πώς έζησε και πώς πέθανε.
The art of dying is exactly the way Christ lived and died.
Είναι πολύ καλή ερώτηση, ακριβώς. Αλλά και ευχαριστώ γιατί μου δίνετε τη δυνατότητα, DRD, να πω αυτό το πράγμα.
That's a great question, and thank you for asking it, because this gives me the chance to.
Κοιτάξτε, ο Χριστός πώς αντιμετώπισε τον πόνο και το θάνατο. Δεν είπε αυτό που έλεγα πριν, τι ωραία, πονάω. Ας χαρούμε λοιπόν.
How did Christ face pain? He didn't say, oh, this is great.
Γιατί καμιά φορά συμβαίνει αυτό στο Άγιον Όρος, όταν πεθαίνουν οι πατέρες, οι άλλοι πανηγυρίζουν και λένε για στα δικά μας.
Because sometimes in Marathos, there is this strange practice of rejoicing in a sense and dancing around and saying that we can't wait till it's our turn to die.
Και είναι αληθινό, δεν το κάνουν για πλάκα, το βιώνουν ότι ξέρεις θα τελειώσουμε από εδώ και θα πάμε στην πραγματική μας ζωή.
And of course they're genuine in doing this.
Αλλά μέσα του αυτό έχει και μια δραματικότητα και μια τραγικότητα. Σκεφτείτε δύο πράγματα, παρελθέτω από εμού το ποτήριον τούτον.
But remember that this is not actually the Christian way, because Christ himself asked to be saved of this cup.
Και το δεύτερον, Θεέ μου, γιατί με εγκατέλειπες.
And also, my God, why have you abandoned me?
Αυτή είναι η ισορροπία του Χριστού, η χριστολογική ερμηνεία του πόνου, την οποία επαναφέρει ο Γέροντας Πορφύριος.
This is the kind of balance that Geron Porphyrios brought back.
Ένας άλλος σπουδαίος ποιητής μας, και συγχωρέστε με που χρησιμοποιώ ποιητές.
Another great poet.
Μακάρι οι θεολόγοι να γράφαμε όπως οι ποιητές.
It would be great if theologians could write as poets write.
Διότι όλοι οι μεγάλοι πατέρες της Εκκλησίας ήταν ποιητές.
Because all the great fathers of the church were poets.
Αλλά εμείς ξεχάσαμε στην νεότερη Ορθοδοξία μας και στο χριστιανισμό γενικότερα την ποιητικότητα.
We've forgotten this poetic aspect in modern
Προτιμήσαμε
theology.
ή την ασκητική σε εισαγωγικά ζωή
only the ascetic aspect,
ή το κοινωνικό έργο.
Or active life outside.
Τα οποία είναι πάρα πολύ θετικά.
Which are both very positive.
Αλλά χρειάζεται ένα balance, μια ισορροπία, μια νοηματοδότηση του αυτού του κοινωνικού έργου και της άσκησης. Καταλαβαίνετε λοιπόν ότι θα πρέπει κανείς να βρει αυτήν την χρυσή, αν θέλετε, όχι ισορροπία, στο που οι πατέρες το λέγανε μέση βασιλική οδός.
So we need to find this royal path.
Που σημαίνει, τι λέει αυτός ο ποιητής μας, ο Κυριάκος Χαραλαμπίδης, είναι ποιητής Ακαδημίας Αθηνών.
Κυριάκος Χαραλαμπίδης is the poet he's referring to.
Ο οποίος λέγει, αν ο λαός μας αναφέρεται στην τραγωδία της Κύπρου,
and he said that if our people refer to the tragedy of Cyprus.
Ας μην ξεχνούμε σήμερα ότι η Κύπρος, η Λευκοσία είναι η μόνη διαιρεμένη πόλη στον κόσμο.
Because Lefkosia is the only divided city in the world today.
Και λέγει για τους Έλληνο-Κύπριους.
And he's talking about the Greek Cypriots.
Αν ο λαός μας δεν μπορεί
if our people cannot
να αντλήσει από τα δεινά του, από τις δυσκολίες του, να αντλήσει, να βγάλει ζωή από τις δυσκολίες του,
to glean and life from these difficulties,
τότε κακώς μας δόθηκε μια τέτοια τραγωδία.
Then it's very tragic that this was given to us.
Ο Χριστός, ξέρετε, δεν αποδέχθηκε το θάνατο.
Christ did not accept death.
Τον πάτησε.
It stomped on him.
Τον νίκησε.
It went over him. It kind of like stomped him down.
Και πάω στην άλλη μεγάλη μας ποιήτρια της Ακαδημίας Αθηνών, την Κική Δημουλά.
And let me also mention another great poet.
Ήταν υποψήφια για το βραβείο Νόμπελ, ελπίζω να το πάρει του χρόνου.
Who was a candidate for the Nobel Prize. Δώσ' μου το όνομα πάλι.
Κική Δημουλά.
Κική Δημούλα.
Η οποία όταν πρώτη φορά επικοινωνήσαμε δια της αλληλογραφίας μέσα από τα γράμματα, ανταλλάξαμε γράμματα.
And we had a correspondence together.
Μου έγραψε, χαίρομαι πολύ που με τιμάτε.
I'm very happy that you are honoring me,
Εσύ είσαι ένας θεολόγος,
and you're a theologian,
αλλά θα πρέπει να σας πω ότι δεν νιώθω πολύ χριστιανή και ορθόδοξη.
but I want to tell you that I don't really feel too much of an Orthodox Christian myself,
Γιατί φοβάμαι το θάνατο.
because I'm afraid of death.
Δεν μπορώ να δεχθώ το θάνατο.
I cannot accept death.
Και της απάντησε ότι
And I answer her that
είναι εντελώς ορθόδοξη.
that's the most Orthodox thing,
Γιατί κανένας ορθόδοξος δεν μπορεί να δεχτεί τον θάνατο.
because no real Orthodox should accept death,
Ο θάνατος δεν είναι ένα φυσικό γεγονός.
because death is not a natural event.
Είναι φυσικό κατά την βιολογία,
It's only natural according to biology.
αλλά σύμφωνα με την θεολογία ο
But
θάνατος
according
είναι
to
κάτι
theology,
το οποίο αποτελεί αλωτρίωση της φυσικής κατάστασης του ανθρώπου.
this is a distortion of human nature, death.
Και τελείωνε το γράμμα της όταν μου έλεγε ότι δεν μπορεί να αποδεχτεί το θάνατο
And she ended her letter
με μια φράση λέγοντας «Γι' αυτό κύριε Σταμούλη εγώ δεν κατάφερα ακόμη να πω «Μπα γιατί του παππού μου είναι». «Μπα γιατί του παππού μου είναι». Δεν κατάφερα λέει να το πω αυτό. Θα σας πω τι είναι αυτό.
I never was able to say
«Μπα γιατί, why,
why.
this is of my grandfather».
This is of my grandfather.
What was that? Σε ένα CD μου που της έστειλα είχα μια προλογική ιστορία.
In one of a CD that I sent her, there was an introduction
Με αυτόν τον τίτλο, «Μπα γιατί του παππού μου είναι»,
with that very title.
όπου έγραφα τα εξής. Έχει φύγει ο πατέρας μου από καρκίνο στον εγκέφαλο στα 68 του.
My father died at 68 because of cancer.
Πάμε στο κημητήρι του χωριού να κάνουμε το τρισάγιο.
We go to the graveyard to do a trisagion,
Η κόρη μας είναι 4.
and our daughter is 4 years old.
Το χωριό μας το μνήμα έχει ξύλινα κάγκελα.
The graveyard has a wooden fence,
Η μικρή πηδούσε πάνω κάτω και έπαιζε. Έμπαινε μέσα, έβγαινε έξω.
and the 4-year-old was going in and out, playing.
Μία κυρία από το χωριό συγγενής λέει «Αλεξάνδρα, μην το κάνεις αυτό, εδώ ο χώρος είναι ιερός».
But a neighbor of the area said, Alexandra, don't do that because this is a holy place.
Και η μικρή απάντησε
And she answered,
«Μπα γιατί του παππού μου είναι».
but why? It's of my grandfather. It's my grandfather's.
One more question, I think.
It's very quick. It just in relation to what you just said, how can we reconcile that with the fact that Christ voluntarily accepted his death?
Αυτή είναι η πιο θεολογική ερώτηση. Όλες ήταν θεολογικές.
All
Αλλά
questions
αυτή...
today were theological, but this is the most theological question.
Κοιτάξτε, είναι όντως ο θάνατός του μια επιλογή.
Yes, indeed, his death is a choice.
Είναι εκούσιος θάνατος.
It is a voluntary death.
Επειδή ακριβώς ο θάνατος δεν είναι ένα απόλυτα προσωπικό γεγονός μόνον.
Because death is not only solely a personal event.
Κατά την προσωπική μου άποψη, κανένας θάνατος και κανένας πόνος δεν είναι προσωπικός.
In my opinion, no specific death or no specific pain is only personal or individual.
Είπα πριν ότι ο Χατζηδάκης λέει ότι αυτός που βρίσκεται πάνω στο σταυρό πονάει, οι άλλοι δεν καταλαβαίνουν και έχει δίκιο. Αλλά
Hadzidakis, the great musician, said on his grave that only the person who is on the cross is in pain.
Αλλά ο θάνατός μου ή ο πόνος μου επηρεάζει πλήρως το σύνολο της κοινωνικής ζωής.
But my pain and my cross actually affects the whole universe.
Των ανθρώπων που συνδέονται μαζί μου.
All the people who are somehow connected with me.
Ο Χριστός λοιπόν συνδεόταν με όλο το ανθρώπινο γένος.
And Christ was connected with all of the human race.
Η επιλογή του είναι επιλογή θυσίας.
So his choice was a choice of sacrifice.
Διότι δεν υπήρχε άλλος δρόμος για να σωθεί το ανθρώπινο γένος
Because there was no other way for humanity to be saved.
Παρά να πεθάνει αυτός που δημιούργησε το ανθρώπινο γένος.
Except for that person who created the humanity.
Προκειμένου να νικηθεί ο θάνατος.
To die in order for death to be defeated.
Είναι μια θυσία.
It's a sacrifice.
Με σκοπό τη νίκη του θανάτου.
And its goal is the victory over death.
Όχι την αποδοχή του.
Not its acceptance, but victory over it.
It's a quick question? One more? Been very patient.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention that you talk about holy sensitivity, and on a personal level, the idea of seeing sensitivity as something to embrace and transfigure rather than to fight is something that can then be cultivated in a heartfelt and prayerful way if you stop trying to resist it. And that's just incredibly moving. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Και ένα μόνο σχόλιο.
And one more comment.
Η ευαισθησία
Sensitivity.
Μερικές φορές τους πολύ ευαίσθητους ανθρώπους
In very sensitive people sometimes.
Μπορεί να τους διαλύσει.
Can destroy them.
Γνωρίζω πολλούς από αυτούς.
I know many such people.
Η επιληψία, για παράδειγμα, στον Ντοστογεύσκη είναι μια τέτοια μορφή ευαισθησίας.
So the epilepsy of Dostoevsky is one version of this.
Ας θυμηθούμε τον ηλίθιο.
Remember the idiot.
Δεν είναι ασθένεια με την έννοια της ασθένειας, αλλά μια ακραία μορφή ευαισθησίας.
It was a real sickness in the sense of a sickness, but actually it was an extreme sensitivity.
Γι' αυτό και σε μεταγενέστερες ερμηνευτικές προτάσεις ο πρίγκιπας Μίσκιν κατανοείται ως διαχριστός άλλος.
And that's why Prince Miskin in later interpretations was seen as a fool for Christ.
Ο Άγιος και ο ποιητής είναι όπως το σφουγγάρι της θάλασσας.
Both saints and poets are like sponges.
Έχει πόρους και ρογμές.
Because it has holes and pores and also cracks.
Και επειδή θέλω να νιώθω ο ίδιος έτσι, όχι Άγιος και ποιητής, αλλά άνθρωπος με ρογμές,
and because we all want to feel that way,
αφιερώνω το καινούριο μου βιβλίο ουσιαστικά στον εαυτό μου,
I dedicate my next book
στους τσαλακωμένους,
to all people who have been sort of crumpled,
στους νικημένους
and who have been defeated,
και στους αβέβαιους.
and to those who are insecure and unsure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.